how can government address these gaps and challenges?
Our government will continue to ensure that the referral mechanism is always activated. This also includes the enhancement of current programs, services, and strategies, given the new normal in our work with development partners and other national government agencies.
Here are the humble recommendations to address the challenges that we have mentioned. Number 1, scale up anti-trafficking efforts to address the immediate impacts, long-term risks, and consequences that the pandemic will bring to trafficking survivors and vulnerable groups. This calls for greater interagency collaboration to strictly implement anti-trafficking laws and policies across all sectors, especially during these times of crisis. Number 2, dedicate more human and financial resources to boost enforcement mechanisms such as online enforcement presence, labor inspections on fishing vessels, and criminal justice system, including investigations, detection, and prosecution of traffickers in these pandemic times. The third one would be intensify awareness campaigns on children's online vulnerabilities, cyber safety, forced labor on fishing vessels, and anti-trafficking hotlines and reporting mechanisms using appropriate multimedia channels in vulnerable communities. Strengthen safeguarding mechanisms of online services, tools, and platforms. Improve existing cybersecurity measures through investing in human moderators and enhancing monitoring and policing algorithms in online platforms and services. And of course, work with the private sector to improve labor practices along the fishery supply chain compliant with standards that promote fair and safe working conditions for fishers.
The government should strive harder and exert extra effort in developing policies and programs applicable in times of pandemic and national emergencies. There must be a shift from how government used to monitor cases of trafficking in persons, taking into consideration the limited movements and activities that are allowed with the community quarantine. Close coordination among concerned agencies, although virtual, should be strengthened and sustained. Moreover, the government must make use of online platforms in reaching out to people and involving them in addressing issues of trafficking in persons.
Efforts of governments must be magnified as well, mastering both human and material resources to ensure that our migrants and seafarers, as populations of higher risk to the COVID-19 pandemic and the stigma attached to it, are given proper attention, assistance, and care. Finally, the unique work arrangements on the vessels must be addressed by the international maritime authorities and other relevant stakeholders to guarantee the safety and well-being of our seafarers. Unlike land-based workers, our seafarers are most productive when they are in the high seas for only limited periods of time. As essential workers, ensuring the movement of goods and products around the globe and preventing the collapse of the world economy, seafarers deserve no less in terms of protection and promotion and fulfillment of their rights on board and offshore.
Since the implementation of the COVID-19 quarantine in March of 2020, the TWG has immediately shifted to offering online legal assistance. We adopted this new platform in order that our services in giving advice to all the victims will not be hampered because of the travel restrictions. And we are glad to say that we were able to serve at least 9,138 clients as of November 2020 because of this new platform. We also have shifted focus on investigating online overseas employment scam. As we mentioned a while ago, the online scam became prevalent because of this pandemic, and the POA was able to shut down 94 online pages and groups conducting illegal recruitment activities through social media. Also, POA continues to conduct anti-illegal recruitment and anti-trafficking in persons or airtrip information campaigns online.
We examined the 2018 revised guidelines on departure formalities on international bound passengers until the new Immigration Modernization Bill becomes law. The Immigration Modernization Bill aims to include departure formalities in order to address new trends in PIP. While 2018 revised guidelines on departure formalities on international bound passengers updates TWG MC number 36 by including provisions not included in the other guidelines. Another recommendation is to revisit the Memorandum of Agreement between the Bureau of Immigration and the Philippine Overseas Employment Agency, or the POEA, on systems interconnectivity between the two agencies to further resolve recurring issues concerning IT and other matters. We would also like to recommend that consultation with the NBI, the PNP, the TWG, OOC, and other concerned agencies be done on how to establish stricter monitoring of transactions done through the internet. Also, coordinate with other concerned agencies on stern implementation of health protocols, that is, verification of health certificates before entering port premises. We also recommend that we explore the possibility of implementing electronic or contactless means of screening passengers.
We can have government as a whole, along with civil society, we can have a comprehensive and coherent reintegration, economic and psychosocial reintegration approach for all of the return to OFWs. One good thing is that the private is very much willing to contribute. Like with us for the OPLE Center, we will be signing a memorandum of agreement with San Miguel Foods and with RCBC that would provide OFWs with access to market-based livelihood endeavors, would actually probably serve as an alternative for them to convince them to stay here in the Philippines instead of looking for work outside of the country. But it has to be coherent, and we shouldn't, it has to be follow singular framework and approach, so that we need to start with our conversations right now. And we have already started doing that prior to the pandemic, but I think we need to fast track that now and bring in more private sector players who will be able to help us, not only in terms of sourcing funds, but also in terms of actual mentoring of the OFWs who will be establishing a business or who will be entering another line of employment. That I think would ease the pressure somehow in terms of the job market. Second, yeah, I think we have already talked about that. The battle right now is online. And one of the things with the Philippines is that we have our social media and online penetration is deeper here than in other countries. So probably we can leverage that to make sure that our citizens, our fellow Filipinos have access to information, and that they have access to whatever grievance mechanism is there from both government and with the private sector, with private recruitment agencies, so that they'll be able to air out their plights or their concerns immediately. So the battle right now, as I mentioned, is online, and it's all incumbent for us to try to make our systems more secure, more efficient, and more streamlined than it was before. And I think it's something that's really necessary right now to start migrating most of our processes and most of our systems online. Lastly, for our part at the Opera Center, we're looking at how at this early stage we could start helping the private sector, especially the private recruitment agencies who are deploying domestic workers, how we can help them adopt ethical recruitment practices and improve their capacity to deal with grievances and complaints from their workers. So we are set to sign a partnership with CLADS and with OPAP, the OPLE Center, along with our partners from the International Organization for Migration and, of course, the Interagency Council Against Trafficking, to make them allies in the fight against trafficking. Because, they're, especially the licensed one, they're also stakeholders here. Every time we meet them, we share the same complaints about illegal recruiters, how they are poaching jobs and creating a bad image for the sector as a whole. So I think it's high time that we start recruiting them as an ally, not only in terms of generating jobs for our citizens, but also in terms of being proactive in the fight against trafficking, actively reporting cases, helping us gather information, providing us with intelligence and providing us with insights actually on how the sector and how the legitimate recruitment processes can be abused to abuse and exploit our workers.
We're actually rolling out new systems for appointments so that we would be able to accommodate.
I think the most important consideration would be integrating or streamlining mental health interventions in our responses. On the part of the British Embassy, we're working with local civil society organizations providing mental health support to women OFWs. And I think these kinds of programs really help women migrant workers in terms of empowering them and also addressing their mental health needs, especially if they're still in destination countries.
As predators and traffickers utilise digital technologies to move their illegal operations in the cyberspace, it becomes imperative for law enforcement agencies to step up their efforts online. The British Embassy in Manila is a member of the Philippine Internet Crimes Against Children Centre, or PICAC, together with the Philippine National Police, the National Bureau of Investigation, Australian Federal Police and the International Justice Mission. Since PICAC's inception last year, there has been a steady increase in the numbers of operations commenced, arrests made and victims rescued. Facilitators for live streaming of child sexual abuse operating in the Philippines and abroad have also been disrupted, and many child victims of sexual exploitation have been rescued and removed from harm.
The WCPC calls for the government to enjoin all stakeholders, particularly the internet service providers, to be more active in detecting and blocking the transmission of child abuse materials that pass through their network. Most importantly, the immediate reporting of these materials to the authorities shall be a top priority.